Good morning, lovely people. Well, I say good morning. It's not. Oh, drip. It's an absolutely grotty, filthy day here in London. Again, we've had non-stop rain for, I think this is our 4th day, and we've got at least another day of rain to come. Relentless. So I haven't been able to get to the garden for, well, it's been 5 days now. By the time I get back to the garden, it'll have been a whole week, which is slightly driving me bonkers because I've got so much to do. I'm just sitting at my desk in the kitchen for a minute before we get stuck into the nasturtium seeds today. But yeah, so I'm sitting at my desk, I've got my pin board sort of there on the wall in front of me. It's where I do all my planning. This is Vivi's Kitchen Garden HQ. So I've got my sort of list of plot jobs. If you remember the last time, was it the last time? Maybe time before, when I was in the garden, I was really stuck and kind of overwhelmed because there was just so much to do. So I did what I said I would do at the end of that video, and I went and stood at the end of each bed. Oh, need to, sorry, computer's making noises, I will ignore it. Yeah, I stood at the end of each bed with my notebook, and I wrote down every possible job I could think of, no matter how big or how small, literally everything. I even went behind the shed, in the shed, so I've got this great big long list. Now some of the things can wait, some of the things are not important or not a priority by any means. But it was great to just be able to then, I brought that list home, had a good trawl through it to think, right, what do I need to get done now? What's kind of time precious to do in terms of sewing? What is precious to do, time precious to do in terms of harvesting because of possible frosts we might get? So it was really great. It really kind of, it put me so at ease just by getting my thoughts all on paper. It's all organised. So now all I need is a day in the garden. Well, quite a few days. I had planned to have the whole of Friday, last Friday, in the garden, and all week I've been watching the weather forecast. No sign of rain, no sign of rain, no sign of rain. Thursday morning I got up, checked the forecast again for the Friday, and that's when it all began. Never mind, at least now I know what I'm going to get up to and in what order, and I can't wait. There are so many fun, fab things to do in the garden in October. You know, it's funny, I was talking about this to a friend. I am going to burble on for a minute. By the way, I am going to also do the nasturtium seeds, but they're so quick. We'll do that at the end. But yeah, I was chatting with a friend recently, and I was saying this is the first year ever where I haven't had a real sort of, yeah, not to put too fine a point on it, an actual sort of depression and black cloud descend on me towards the end of September. Normally, I really, really struggle with saying goodbye to the summer, goodbye to the good weather, goodbye to the light. Not just the light in terms of, obviously, the days are getting shorter, we're getting darker much earlier in the evening, it's dark when we wake up. But during the actual daytime, the light is so poor at this time of year. And like I say, normally it spins me into a real depression. I hate it, I absolutely hate it. And also, because it's happened every year, I know it's coming and I dread it. And sort of my way of combating it, normally, not at the moment, is to just get outside as much as I possibly can, whenever I can, every day pretty much. Not necessarily in the garden, but just get outside and try to experience some light. But yeah, this year it hasn't happened yet. Is it going to happen? I'm sure it will. I think that's partly because you know, obviously I've got the garden. I've had the garden in previous years. But I think this year in the garden, because I'm not going to be doing the green manure, I'm not looking at a spring of digging all that green manure in. I tried last year for the first time the experiment of covering the beds. Didn't do them all, didn't have the material to, but this year I'm going to do that with all of them. And I think part of the reason I'm not feeling quite so about going into this sort of darker time is I've set myself up with some easier work, and frankly it's going to be fun, you know, gathering leaves. I like that. It's going to be fun whizzing them up, chopping them up with my strimmer in the bucket. I like a bit of mud on my boots. So yeah, there's loads to get on with, and like I say, all the jobs that I'm looking at for the next 4 to 6 weeks in the garden, they're all fun jobs, they're all really positive. So for now, the black demon of this change of season hasn't landed yet. Yay, thank goodness. Anyway, so, oh yes, a couple of things just before I go on to the nasturtiums. Sorry. Now, I know a lot of you are vegetarian, I know quite a few of you are vegan, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with this brand of bouillon, stock powder, and also some of you might use the yeast flakes. That's how we get our little bit of extra B vitamins. So the company make this Marigold. I just found out, actually I found out about a week ago and I kept meaning to mention it. The warehouse, the distribution centre has burnt to the ground. Absolute massive fire. So it's based in North London. They had just a catastrophic fire. Thank goodness no one was hurt. No one was hurt, thank goodness for that. But what it means is, for all us veggies and vegans who rely on their products, we're going to have a hard time finding them. So if you're out and about and this is what you use, I would say stock up while you can. I mean, don't go mad. Don't buy 20 of everything and leave nothing for anyone else. That's selfish. But maybe just have a little look at the stock you've got, as in not stock powder, but stock as in how much store you've got in your cupboards. I'm getting pretty low on this, so I will make sure I get out ASAP to get another one. So yeah, you might want to think about stocking up a bit, but like I say, don't go too mad and don't be selfish and take the lot. The other thing I wanted to quickly say was, can you see what it is? Look, it's little flamingos, isn't that gorgeous? Oh, a whole screen full of flamingos. I'm going to be using one of my beeswax wraps / covers today. They are so ridiculously easy to make, so quick and simple. I mean, this one you can you see there? It hasn't even been hemmed around the edge. I've just cut it with pinking shears to stop it from fraying. How long does it take to cut a piece of cloth? A minute. How long does it take to get the beeswax onto there? A minute. How long does it take for it to dry? A minute. Let's put it this way, in about 5 minutes you could have your own beeswax wraps. So if you're not sure, if you've never done it before, check out my little series of videos called DIY for Try It Yourself. There's a little video in there about how to make them, and it's a really fun thing. Oh, one of the reasons I wanted to mention this today is because of all this rain. I know probably so many of us are going stir crazy stuck indoors. Fortunately, there's loads to do indoors at the moment in terms of podding, food processing. We're going to do some pickling in a minute. Sewing. I've been sewing up a storm. It's great. I'm catching up on all my sewing. I could catch up on the housework. I'm not going to though, because it's boring and I can't stand doing it. So I'm going to forget it, leave it for another day. So yes, have a little look at this, especially if you've got kids who are getting a bit auntie or grandkids. It's something you could really easily do with them one afternoon on one of these rainy days. So, enough of that. Let's go and pickle some nasturtium seeds. Well, really, could it be any more simple? So I've got here, this is about a cup of nasturtium seeds. Oh, there's probably about 100 or so grams in there. They are still filthy, still muddy filthy, so they're going to need a really, really good wash. That's our star ingredient. And then quite simply, that's about 15 grams or so of salt. Actually, I had to dive into the back of the cupboard to have a really good search for this, because I really rarely use salt, and for a minute I thought I had none, but I found some. Isn't that bowl gorgeous? Whoopla! Oh, nearly throw it, fly in and break it. Isn't it a cutie patootie? I found this in a little, I think it was in a jumble sale for 20p. What's on the bottom? What, I can't even see. But yeah, I love having these little ceramics in the kitchen, and perfect for a little portion of olives, or, once they're done, capers. Digressing. So salt, we're going to have some water, about 300 mils of water, and then finally in here we've got about a couple of 100 mils of white wine vinegar. I love this jug as well. This was a Christmas present from my mum a couple of years ago. Isn't it adorable? It's a Beatrix Potter with some of her botanical illustrations on it, as well as just Peter Rabbit. Really digressing today. You can tell it's a rainy day, can't you? I'm stuck inside. I'm yabbering on to you lot. And then finally, this will be enough to do a £1/2 jar. It's just an old jam jar. That will need sterilising. But I won't be doing that until tomorrow, because first of all, these are going to be brined overnight. But before I even do that, let me give these all a really, really good scrub, because I did, in the end, grab a few off the soil too. This really is the most super duper easy, quick-ish thing to do. The only thing that takes time is getting them all clean, because, you know, I'm sure we all eat a bit of soil every now and again, don't we? But I think it is worth taking the time with these to get them really clean, because I don't want that kind of gritty taste as I pop one in my chops. Now, when you're doing them, you'll see them, and you see that it's kind of clumped. This is how they come off in little threes. What I like to do as well is just, they snap apart so that I can end up with 3 bits. Can you see that? Just makes them go a little bit further. And yeah, just nice to have that slightly smaller, more delicate, more caper-esque. Also, whilst you're doing this, it gives you a chance to just have a little check through that one, for instance. Occasionally, as I'm grabbing them, if I grab a handful, I sort of just go pull them off a stalk. A couple of them are on their way to being over, as in they're on their way to being dry, and seeds that just want to drop onto the soil. And as I was saying when I was harvesting them, mostly I just let them drop and self-seed for next year. Gosh, it's going to take me a minute. Go and put the kettle on. Hopefully that's got them pretty much clean and all separated, and a chance to pick out any that I don't like the look of. So all I'm going to do, that's my salt in there. So it's 15 grams of salt. That's about 300 mils of water. So I'm basically making a brine. the seeds are going to go into this. This is going to start to help to preserve them. Salt is a great preserver. Sugar is a great preserver. You know, if you think of your jams and stuff. I'm not a huge sugary person, so I don't do much storing with sugar. Not a huge salty person either, which is why I do so much preserving in the water bath canner, so I can get away with not using either. But in this instance, I don't mind the saltiness. So my salt's nicely dissolved, dispersed. In go my capers. They will sit in this now for 24 hours. And here comes the beeswax. So if you haven't used them before, the thing with them is just the warmth of your hands is enough to give the wax a little bit of a melt. Not a melt, but it just makes it a bit more pliable. So that you can get your cover on. Be patient, a couple of times round. Get your cover on. Nice tight seal, because that's just going to sit out in the kitchen for the next 24 hours. And I don't want anything getting in there. Right, let's let that soak in the brine for 24 hours. We'll come back tomorrow and then we'll get them jarred and pickled. Welcome back. It's the next day. And as you can probably tell from the light, it's still grotty out. But never mind. Let's get on with our Nasturtium seed fake capers. So, I've just drained them out of the brine. And now I want to give them a little bit of a drying. So I'm just going to spread them out on this clean tea towel. Give them a spread out. And then just gently give them a bit of a pat dry. Excuse me, tickle tickle. Just while I let those have a bit of a dry, a word on sterilising. As you can tell, I've just done this one because I'm in a hard water area. It ends up giving me, this is basically a form of calcium that's now all over my jar. So there's various ways you can sterilise. I've literally just, it's still pretty warm, taken this out of the pan. Because I'm just doing one jar and its lid today, I've done them on the stove in a pan of boiling water. I've just given it a boil for 10 minutes. So, pan of water, pop my jar in, bring it up to the boil and let it have a boil for 10 minutes. It's a really handy, quick way if you're just doing one jar. And like I say, for such a small quantity, it's handy to be able to just do one jar. If I was doing, say, if I'm doing a load of tomatoes, bottling a load of tomatoes, then I'll do it one of two ways. Either I'll put them all in the water bath canner in water and boil them in that, or it depends what I'm doing. If I've had a roast, if I've had the oven on anyway, I'll give all my bottles a really hot soapy wash in the sink, give them a bit of a rinse, and then when I've finished cooking in the oven, turn the oven right down low, pop them all in the oven to dry in the oven, and that also, the bit of heat in the oven is enough to kill off any nasties, and also it dries the jars out. But that's only if I'm doing anything in quantity. Right, let's have a look. That's pretty well dry. Ooh, don't lose any. I'm losing a couple. Then you're not going to get them bone dry, obviously, but just get off most of that residual brine solution. Right, let me tip you down again so you can see what I'm doing. And now it could not be more simple. In you go. Gorgeous, gorgeous little things. So It's not quite a full jar, that's fine. I want to leave a bit of space over the top for some vinegar. So in goes my white wine vinegar. You could also, you could add some herbs at this stage too, maybe some peppercorns. I want about 1 centimetre of vinegar above them. There we go. Carefully, carefully, because the lid has been sterilised too. And that's it. That is my little jar of poor woman's capers. Oh, can't wait. Cannot wait to start scoffing this lot. So there we have it. Dead quick, dead simple. I mean, it's quick in terms of, it's 2 steps. Brine them and then pickle them. What could be more yummy and more simple? Oh, I can't wait. So this now, it should keep for up to a year. I don't know beyond a year. Look, the bottom line is it's not going to last that long. What I'll do now, sorry, I've got a real tickle this morning. What I'll do now is I'll put them somewhere cool, dark. The pantry is the perfect place for, ideally, I'll leave them at least a month before I start tucking in. Well, I leave a month, it might not be a month. But yeah, it's, like I said, they'll be shelf stable for a year. Once you've opened them, keep them in the fridge and use them up in a few days, not an issue. Depending on how much you use, actually, let me just grab one of my other jars. I realised that yesterday when I was filming, I mistakenly said it's a £1/2 pound jar. It's not, it's a £1 jar. But you could always go for, say, a £1/2 pound jar. So if you think, actually once it's opened I'd struggle to get through that jar in a week, why would you? Then just jar them in much smaller quantities so that once it's open you're not going to have loads left over and waste them. I can't imagine how you would waste them, but there we go. So yes, like I say, dead quick and simple. The only 2 bits that take any time is getting them washed and leaving them to brine. Now I realise I've probably made, I don't know, a half-hour video out of a 2-minute recipe. I make no apologies for that. It's been grotty weather for days and days on end now. I've got cabin fever, I'm in chatty mode because I haven't been out, I'm not seeing other people to talk to. I've had a few phone calls, I've been talking to people online as well, but it's not quite the same as just having a good old natter. So, no apologies for it being a long one. If you were just looking for the recipe, I hope you just whizzed through all my babbling on, got to the end and got to the main bit of the show. But there we go. Poor woman's capers into the cupboard, and I might even see if I can sit on them till Christmas. Not sit on them, you know what I mean. Not eat them till Christmas and then take them to share with family. I will see you all again really soon as this weather clears up. My giddy goodness, I have got so much to do in the garden, so much. A week ago, I didn't feel behind, I had my plan, brilliant. But a week of absence in the garden, that's 3 gardening sessions missed, means I really am behind. I'm just looking out now, and I think it might be clearing up a bit. So I'm going to put my wellies on, get myself down to the garden and see what mischief I can get into. I will see you in the next video when I get up to that mischief. So for now, cheerio, stay well, look after each other, and I will see you again really soon.